Hi guys, so we're here with Health Heroes and I am here interviewing Zach Petter. So he is actually the director, owner of the Brain Balance Centers here in San Antonio. And one of the big things is I wanted to tell you guys and teach you guys about all the different things that are out there to help with your different wellness concerns, okay? So one of the things is our kids. Now, a lot of people don't really know my story, and I'm going to give you a little bit of it right now. For future videos, I'm going to get a little bit more in-depth and probably a little more personal, but right now I'm going to kind of make it a little bit short. But I met Zach, how long has it been, 4 years? 3 years?
4 years.
About 4 years now? Okay, so about 4 years ago, me and my husband realized that our oldest son, Dylan, was struggling. He was struggling with learning, with social aspects, you know, and we were pretty sure that he was on the spectrum somewhere. We didn't get an official diagnosis or anything like that, but when you first realize that, I remember for me it was heartbreaking. You know, you don't feel like you have any answers, or you don't know what to do. Sorry, I'm going to get a little emotional. And so I remember being in my living room and starting to get really emotional and really scared for him, you know, because sometimes the world isn't the nicest place for these people, you know, for people who are having social issues. So anyways, me and my husband started researching because we're the type that really don't give up easily. And so we knew there had to be more out there. There had to be something that could at least help him. So we started doing some research, and luckily it was actually my husband who found, I don't know if it was a website or something like that, but you guys had just opened.
Yep.
And so he found it and he said, hey, you know, what about this place? No idea what it was. It was Brain Balance. We live actually on the other side of the highway. We're here at 1604 and 281 in San Antonio. And we were on the other side of the highway. And I said, you know, well, it's right there. Let's go and find out. So I remember coming in here. I was a little skeptical about what they were telling me, to be honest with you, okay? Because my mind wasn't there yet. My mind wasn't open enough just yet. I think I was still stuck in the idea that there was little that you could do for people in the spectrum. And so, but I wasn't going to give up, but I think I was a little skeptical at first. So
new thoughts, new ideas, new research, it takes a little to process it.
It does. It really does. And, but Amanda's not here with us. This is Zach, right? Her husband, Zach. You know, they were great. When we first got here, they were amazing. They started telling us about everything, you know, what they were doing. I remember being like, well, you know, it's our kid, you know, and he's worth it. So we got to do everything we can, you know, to see what we can do for him. We can't just, you know, sit on our hands and be like, that doesn't sound good or whatever. I'm like, well, what the hell else are you going to do? They're your kids, you know. You have to do something. And you can't just sit on your ass, because they're not going to get better sitting on your ass, okay? So anyway, sorry about that text.
You're going to do everything you can for them.
You are. You're going to go out of your way for them. They're your kids, you know? And so, anyways, so we met them. Dylan's went through their program. He started getting better. He started being able to socialize. I mean, there was so many different changes in him. And I just knew it was a great, huge stepping stone for him. Now, we've done other things beyond that to help fine-tune him and to do some other things, but honestly, Brain Balance was one of the biggest stepping stones, or beginning stepping stones that we did to give Dylan a better chance at life, you know, and stuff. So, so I'm really grateful for all of that. Okay, I want to give you a hug for that. Thank you. So, okay, so I'm going to give it to Zach. Zach is going to explain to you a little bit about Brain Balance, what it is they do here, because you guys don't know what Brain Balance is a lot of times. You have no clue. And so I want Zach to sit here, or he's going to take us through a tour through their facility here and explain to you what is Brain Balance and why it works. Okay?
So first, it's pretty much just like in your case, you see a struggle, you see a challenge, whether it's a first child or a second child, and you just notice that there's a change, there's something that's not lined out that should be, or you would think would be lined out.
Like a delayed speech, or
right.
Not socially acting correctly,
any
not
kind
understanding.
Of struggle, any kind of challenge, any kind of delayed milestones, because you know those milestones, like rolling over at a certain time, sitting up at a certain time, crawling, walking, talking, all of those milestones have those ages associated with them, and they should be hit in those age range. If there's any kind of delays, then that's already showing there's some kind of developmental immaturity, there's some kind of imbalance already starting, even at early stages. So that's actually one of the things we even look at is from infancy on, the earliest milestones, making sure that those are even hit.
Right.
And we have kids from 4 to like K through 12, pre-K through 12, so like 4 to 18, and everywhere in between. And we even check those infantile milestones on all those ages to make sure that they were correctly hit. I mean, we do everything in kind of in between, from the kind of the ground up on the development and overall processing and growth of the brain.
Okay.
But literally, a family comes in with any kind of struggle, any kind of challenge, or that just doesn't seem right.
Right.
Our kids have labels, and then, I mean, we see kids with labels of ADHD, Asperger's, autism, sensory processing disorders, all the motor delays, the OCDs, the dyslexias, the learning disorders. We pretty much look at and work with any kind of neurobehavioral learning disorder. And what we do, from pretty much finding out a full-blown neurodevelopmental assessment on all developmental milestones, the sensory skills. So, you know, you touch, your smell, your sight, all the sensory skills, and then all motor skills, and then combining that with cognitive aspect. Okay. So we even have a academic component. It's not tutoring, we're not teaching, it's not doing their homework for them, it's actually using academics to grow different areas of the brain.
So I like to make point of that. Brain balance isn't a center place where they're going to teach your kids necessarily how to read or write or anything like that. It's actually developing the hemispheres of the brain, and to literally bring them into balance.
Right.
Because there's one side of the brain that's stronger than the other side. Is that correct?
And we can go through the details on the little tour we walk through.
Okay.
It'll be a visual to actually see it.
Okay.
But that's exactly right. When we're doing this full-blown assessment on all those different areas, we find is there a unevenness in skills? Is there a age-appropriate skills in certain areas, but then immaturity or underdeveloped or non-age, younger skills? If I've got a 10-year-old, is he doing everything, processing everything as a 10-year-old? Or do you see 10-year-old behaviors and then you see 5-year-old behaviors?
Right.
Do you see the great like analytical skills and detailed processing, but then on the flip side of that, of a 5-year-old, and you're still seeing behavioral kind of outburst, and if he doesn't get his way, you see almost a meltdown, like a terrible twos.
Right.
So that's just an unevenness in skills and an imbalance in the maturity and development of the brain.
So are these also the primitive reflexes and stuff that we're referring to?
Right.
Okay.
So when we're looking at the developmental side, one of the basic areas of initial brain growth is with movement. You have oxygen, nutrition, and movement. Well, in its earliest stages, and movement of the brain or of the body physically by those infant primitive reflexes help to grow and develop the brain in that infancy stage, because they don't have a developed brain yet. So as those infant primitive reflexes, and they're a reflex, so they're automatic.
Right.
There's a sensory input to the body, and the body stimulates those neural pathways to the brain, and then back down, automatically, and it senses some kind of, the action.
And it responds.
Just
like the cheek here for the mothers who breastfeed, the baby will want to turn their head to breastfeed. That's an example of a reflex that he's referring to.
That's the rooting reflex. And so we actually test those. They should be present at infancy for that survival feeding response. After usually that first year, they should be suppressed. If the brain doesn't suppress them and release them because it has enough processing speed, then you're pretty much the efficiency of the brain past that isn't going to be at full potential.
Okay.
And so that's what we look for.
It's stuck.
Right, it's stuck. And so that's why you can see those kind of unevenness in skills of, I've got this 10-year-old, but he's melting down like a 2-year-old. He may still have those infant primitive reflexes that are kind of holding his brain stuck, kind of back in those infantile stages.
Right. And that's kind of what I saw with Dylan when he was going through your program, is that I almost felt like his hands were tied behind his back, is the best way I can describe it. And then as he was going through your program, it was like finally he was kind of freeing himself, and then he was able to move forward a step. and then he was able to do that. You know, it just felt like he was being held back, and that's what you're referring to, is he's stuck in these primitive reflexes that he has yet to shed. Because you're supposed to shed like the rooting reflex.
Yep.
But if you don't shed these reflexes, you become essentially stuck.
Stuck in those areas.
In those areas, and then you can't go to those other milestones.
It's going to hold you back.
From being able to read, to be able to socialize correctly, to be able to do all these different things.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
After infancy, they have all different, like the reading, the writing, cross-crawl movements and patterns. If they're not released, then it's going to either completely withhold you from moving forward with all these other skills, or it's going to limit the progress.
Right.
We see all the time kids have difficulty with either coloring or handwriting. We don't practice handwriting. What we do is practice and release that grasp reflex. And if they have that grasp reflex, they don't want to use, utensils. They'd rather, do stuff with their hands, or with feeding is a lot. They'll eat with their hands versus eat with a utensil. Just because they don't have that dexterity yet.
Right.
Because that reflex, that infantile reflex of the grasp reflex, is still present and should have been released.
Right. Okay.
So same thing of like handwriting. We don't work strictly with handwriting, but what we do is suppress that grasp reflex so that that handwriting just excels and takes off.
Literally, it really is like cutting the strings so they can actually move forward.
Right.
Is really what it is.
It's a reflex, so they're automatic. It's taking up brain processing speed. I like to think of like a piece of pie, and a chunk of that. This is a piece of brain. That's a brain, and a piece of your brain percentage of your brain is trying to fight off those reflexes constantly, versus being able to do daily tasks, daily activities efficiently.
I see what you're saying.
You think of reflex. You go to the doctor, and the doctor hits your knee, and your knee goes.
Right.
Even if you try and think about it and really not let it go, it's still you still have that reflex.
Right.
Same thing with our kids. Our kids that still have these reflexes present, that did not release them, are going to have these struggles along the way because they weren't released and their brain is still trying to fight them off.
Excellent. Okay, so if you guys kind of really basically get that, is that your kids are actually sometimes being just held back a lot of times.
Right.
And they're stuck in these reflexes that they are supposed to have shed as they have gotten older. And for whatever reason, that might be environmental, whatever that might be.
Any kind of influence, maybe they just, in that particular milestone, they didn't move and, say, crawling. We see a lot of kids that didn't crawl appropriately or didn't crawl at all, and they went from sitting and scooting straight to walking, or armory crawl straight to walking. So that's one of the aspects. And then that particular crawling reflex in grade school leads a lot to like posture, stability, balance, coordination. It even relates to being able to focus near and far, like you're looking at the teacher and writing down what the teacher's saying or reading or writing.
That was one of Dylan's exercises. Had to look far, had to look close. Had to look far, had to look close. And they actually had to retrain the brain.
Right.
That's essentially what you're doing too.
That's part of our visual system that we look at, and we grow those vision skills of convergence and divergent skills.
Excellent. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So what else we got? What do we want to go now?
We
What
can
do we want to
walk through.
Do we have anybody on there?
We do. We got 4 people.
Okay, well that's cool. I'll take 4 because we will watch it later. Who do we have? Anybody in particular?
We've got Jackie.
Oh, hi, Jackie.
We got Micah Harris.
Hi, Micah.
Let's see, Cecilia.
Okay, Cecilia. Oh, I haven't seen Cecilia. I met Cecilia in Dallas.
Let's see. I think we got an Eric Cooper and a Tanya Smith.
Hey, Tanya.
I don't know who's still here. Oh, Eugene was on here.
Oh, that's awesome. Hi, babe. So, okay. So
Jackie says hi.
Okay. So as we're going through all this, if you guys have questions as we're going through brain balance, please, put them in the comment section, and Casey will let us know when something comes up, and we'll try to stop and answer whatever questions you have.
If you're in the area, then come, anytime, and you can actually see the facility. We'll do a little walkthrough, but it's going to be.
That way you can kind of learn what they do here and stuff like that. So, okay, Zach,
right,
off
ready?
and away. Take us. Where are we going?
We'll kind of just do a big circle here.
Okay.
First, it's a big part of ours is the kids. So we have a wall of change, and so this corner right here is all of our active kids coming through the program. And as their families are seeing the changes that we're making, they're writing like all the notes.
We did this with Dylan, and we would take that frame, and every time he did something new that was really cool, So we would write it on here. He was able to follow directions. He was able to listen better. He's making more friends at school. Whatever it was, things he could never do, he started to do. So that was a really cool little thing that they have.
Like having fewer meltdowns, better communication, better concentration at home.
Read out loud in front of the class.
Grades are improving.
Reading, I mean, we thought Dylan would struggle with reading. You know, we thought it was going to be a really big deal, but Dylan's doing great now with reading. So this is awesome. Okay, cool.
Showing more social awareness.
Social awareness was a big one, and I think that's what a lot of parents are worried about because, well, let's face it, guys, kids are mean. You know, I mean, they are. I mean, adults are mean.
Today's world
Adults are brutal, and kids can be brutal too. So I think all of us as a parent worry about our kids when it comes to the social aspect and what the world will do to them, you know. So, okay.
Well, specific aspects of our program and testing just for how they perceive themselves, how they perceive themselves in their bubble, if they even feel that they're bubble.
That's
it's kind of weird, like if I'm in your bubble,
right.
Where they have that social awareness of that. So
Which,
we actually
before
look for that, test for that, and be able to improve that so that they can understand how I feel, my body language, facial expressions, nonverbal cues that I'm putting off, to also be in turn to read others.
Because I mean, have you ever watched what's The Big Bang Theory, where like Sheldon's in there and he's in there and he has no sense of space, you know, he'll just be like this or whatever, you know, or he does. He's like, what's the big deal, you know? And so that's what he's referring to, all those social cues that they start to help them to realize, so that they start to be able to socialize better. So okay.
So kind of just starting out on what the underlying development, underlying lateralization is what they call it of the brain. Scientific side of it, but when we're looking at the right and left side, the right hemisphere versus the left hemisphere, they have their own identity, they have their own responsibilities, they need to be pretty much equal and opposite to be balanced and communicate together. So you can see that the left side is more detail oriented, where the right side is big picture. Whether they're verbal versus nonverbal, our small fine motor dexterity muscles versus our big gross motor muscles, our IQ, our intelligence, our smarts, versus our emotional and social side, our logic versus abstract. So that's like our detailed thinking, our sequencing thinking versus like our big picture thoughts. You have positive emotions, approach behaviors versus your negative emotions or withdrawal behaviors. We also like to think of that as the gas pedal and the brakes. And so a lot of times when we're looking at a child that is, we'll get to the weaknesses here shortly, when we're looking at a child that is right weak, it's like they have straight gas pedal and no brakes.
Yeah, that was Dylan.
Yep.
Dylan was very left brain, and so, I mean, he would like run out the street.
Right.
Like he was just go, 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 go. He had
no right
brakes, side, no brakes. So, yeah.
So his right side was definitely weaker than the left.
It was, yes.
Yep. So then the left side controls conscious everything, where right side is unconscious. You have your auditory processing skills versus your tactile and sensory, skills. So a lot of our sensory processing kids, and they just don't feel the senses correctly. Linear and logical, like the detailed thinking, versus your abstract, big picture things.
Nice.
So what we do on the full-blown assessment is figure out what sides of the brain in all these different areas is it mature, or is there underlying, underdeveloped, immature areas? So that's what we're finding is there a immature side? So we're looking at, like Dylan, a right-sided weak child, or a left-sided weak child.
And you're able to do tests here to be able to determine, like, fine-tune what exactly it is.
Where exactly
problem
in those different skilled areas, where the problem lies. Where, is it developmental? Is it sensory side? Is it motor side? Is it cognitive or academic side? And then we put a whole program together specifically, and it's individualized per child. No child's brain is the same. No. So no child is the same.
That's a big deal.
No program is the same.
I think that's a big deal, guys, because a lot of times, they want to give some of these kids like just a blanket, kind of treatment, and that's just not. And that's not logical.
That's
really
one of the main things behind brain balance is we're drug free. We're like non-medical. We're a supplemental, like specialized achievement center. We don't label. We look at actually how the brain is functioning, how it's developed, and then put that specific program together to grow those specific areas.
Right. Awesome. Okay, cool.
So
we're moving on.
That's pretty much just describing that one side versus the other.
Okay.
We're finding a weak side versus a strong side.
Okay. All right. Okay?
And then here's the weaknesses of right brain delays or left brain delays.
Okay.
So we can see right brain weaknesses are more of our ADHD characteristics, our Asperger's characteristics, our autism characteristics. They are more of the OCD, Tourette's, that type realm. More of like the spectrum side realm.
And that's your right side?
That's right-sided
Right side,
weaknesses.
okay.
Where more left-sided weaknesses are like the dyslexia, the learning disorders, some other processing disorders too, but more on like the learning side.
Okay.
Okay, so we can see like right-sided weaknesses, usually awkward or clumsy, those gross motor skills, didn't quite develop, so maybe balance isn't quite off, they bump into things, hyperactive and anxious, those are your big characteristics that you see those.
A lot of those kids running around.
The nonverbal cues and skills on the social side.
Yeah.
Impulsive and lacks focus. Well, that tied in with hyperactive and anxious, that's more of your ADHD, on the sensory side, maybe Asperger's and autism side.
Right.
Or combinations of each. Like I said, we don't
Right, because
we
it's a
don't
spectrum.
label, it's looking at where are the deficiencies. So I'm just throwing in names.
You're just saying like those are kind of the characteristics that you're referring to.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's what we see.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So lacks emotional control. That's where you typically, weak kids usually have those emotional outbursts. Can't have difficulty suppressing or controlling their emotions. More on the reading comprehension side, obsessive and repetitive behaviors, needing the same routine over and over and over.
Yes.
And if we have a change in routine, then it's going to have a difficult.
Bye, Amanda.
Change.
She's gone.
She's the other owner. She walked by. I don't think she want to say hi. Say hi. There's Amanda. Okay, we're coming back.
The immature social behavior. We talked about the social and being able to feel your body and be able to
Yes.
feel your body appropriately, so you know how others feel and can read all those social cues.
And a lot of the kids like this do have trouble sensing themselves,
Right.
which a lot of people don't realize.
No,
I think I even read a book one time about a kid who he said he would jump so that way he could sense himself. So, which is probably something that a lot of you guys don't realize is that some of these kids on the spectrum, they have no sense of their own body, like their own awareness.
That's why and they even had it was a girl. I think she's older now. She couldn't speak, but she would write, and she would write that why she was rocking and stimming and doing all these motor, almost like exertions, was to get that sensory input. So she was old enough to tell what was happening, So it was neat. I can't remember. It was a documentary on something.
Okay. All right. So what else we got here?
So allergy, autoimmunity, more difficulty or lacks interest in sports, ball games, things like that, because of eye tracking and sensory and the movement. Because if they're awkward and clumsy, then this may be difficult.
Right. Yeah.
And then here's your social side: your poor eye contact, your space invading, of that body awareness, spatial awareness. Then more of our left brain skills is more like the academic difficulties, the learning disorder difficulties, dyslexia, all those learning processing skills. So you can see all more of the academic side of the math, verbal, spelling, reading problems, fine motor dexterity problems, recognition skills, auditory processing. Usually our weaker immune system, same thing with we talked about the gas pedal and the brake on like the attention and focus and motor. It also controls the brain also controls the immune system. The left brain is the
fight or
driver.
flight a little bit?
Yeah, but the left brain is the driver of the immune system, where the right brain is the brakes. So if you have an overactive left brain and not the right brain to hold it back, then you can have autoimmunities. But if you have a brakes on the immune system and no driver, then you get weak immune system.
Gotcha. You guys get that? I hope you did. All right.
That's a key one.
That's a good one. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that.
Memory.
You can rewind it if you guys didn't get it.
Memory skills, small details, poor self-esteem, lacks motivation, task avoidance are all more left weaknesses.
Gotcha.
So then we take off the assessment in all those different areas, individualized per that child. Wherever they test turns into their program, and we grow those specific areas. If I've got a 10-year-old that's functioning as a 5-year-old in, say, auditory processing skills, then we're going to start him out as a 5-year-old and grow him up from there.
And so you're going to stimulate the stuff that'll help him shed the reflexes that's keeping him a 5-year-old, so that way he can eventually start to do the tasks of a 10-year-old.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yep. And
You
it
get
just
that?
grows.
That's the simple way of saying it. There's the Dr. Zach version way, and then there's the simple Nadia way.
We do those specific exercises to grow it and make it better.
To make it better. We fixed it. We fixed it. Or we tried to fix it.
Yeah.
So.
So,
All right, what else we got?
this is real basic, but this is the developmental steps of pretty much overall brain. So you're looking at dominance profile. By the age of 3, the right brain or the brain should pick a dominance, either all right-sided, like right eye, right ear, right hand, right foot, or left. But if there's a mixed dominance, then that's showing some kind of immaturity even before 3.
Gotcha.
And those primitive reflexes we talked about, and then that's pretty much the foundation of the brain. So we think of that as the foundation of the house.
Right.
If the foundation isn't set and solid and packed in, then you're not going to be able to layer on levels and walls, which is all the sensory, the motor skills, the cognitive skills, and behavior. Pretty much social and behavior, and cognitive and academic is like your rooftop.
Okay.
You can't just work on the roof if the foundation isn't set yet.
Gotcha. Okay. Awesome.
We also do have a nutritional component.
Oh, yes. Because
It's-
food does matter.
It's a huge
It's a
part.
big deal. Because
Huge part.
certain food does cause inflammation in the body, and that's part of what they do. Do you guys still do the testing for the food?
We don't do the specifics. We pretty much did all the testing, and then over the years pulled out the ones that everybody was
So just the
sensitive to.
yeah, that are the big ones.
Right.
Okay, and a lot of those are going to be
Your glutens, your dairies, your soys,
soy.
sugars, especially
Sugar.
like your artificial sweeteners, your aspartames, your sucraloses.
Yeah, everything that's not real.
Right.
Pretty much everything that's
All the
not real.
fake stuff is
Right.
terrible. Processed stuff is bad.
Right, like processed food, stuff that's like, your frozen food section area.
Everything on the outside of the grocery store
Right.
is where you should be.
The
Everything
perimeter.
on the inside is
Not so
stay
much.
away maybe.
Yeah, pretty much. You want it in the produce section. You also want to eat, like, if you're going to eat meats, it's going to be like grass-fed beef,
that's right.
organic, things like that. Stay away from anything really, you want to have less than 5 to 7 ingredients. You really don't want more than that in your food because it just, you start to get into really non-food
Right.
type items and stuff like that.
Yep.
So, but the food component is a big deal because it really does help reduce the inflammation in the body. And by keeping the inflammation low in the body's able to actually heal and do better with their program.
Heal, do better, and then it actually, once it healed, you absorb the food. Then you absorb the nutrients that feeds brain.
That's right,
And
because
it's
you're
a
not
cycle.
inflamed.
It's a cycle from gut to brain. They have so much research on the gut to brain axis.
Or aren't there more neurons from the gut to the brain versus the brain to the gut or something like that? Maybe I got that confused. I don't know.
There's a lot.
There's a
all the way
lot.
around.
There's a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
There's a lot. Okay,
So it's a clean eating. You eliminate certain foods. It's elimination style diet.
Right.
So we're going into our sensory motor room. This is where we do all of the developmental exercises, the sensory skills, because pretty much we do have different glasses. We have different either right brain or left brain colors of glasses, right brain or left brain smells, right brain or left brain music. So we even have like a music auditory component.
So to give them an idea of kind of what you do, you literally will like stimulate parts of like the brain. Like I remember, I think Dylan might have had like something on his ankle
Yep.
that would vibrate.
It's a little like tactile for touch, that body awareness. Because if I can't feel my body and I can't feel that sensory input, that I'm not going to know where my little bubble is.
Right.
So we drive those areas, and specifically, like if you have, like say, music in your left ear, it's going to go to right brain.
Right.
You have that like tactile stimulator on your left leg, it's going to go to right brain.
And it's up to stimulate and light up
Those
certain
different
parts
areas
of
of
the
the
brain.
Right.
Okay, cool. So-
Different colors, go right brain or left brain. Different sounds and beats and frequencies go left brain or right brain.
Very nice.
So,
All right, cool.
So they actually wear all the sensory equipment while they're doing all the physical motor skills and
Okay.
developmental exercises, those primitive reflex exercises.
Okay, so they have like glasses and stuff like that they put on,
We have,
so they can kind of see like some of the things
these are
that you
some of
put on
the
them.
glasses that we use.
Ooh, those are fancy. Look at that. These are cool, guys. Check these out.
And you'll see that they'll flash here in a minute. and
Oh,
we can even
oh.
change where that flashes to grow different parts of the brain.
Okay, so you're
or
by
visual
the
system.
light is actually stimulating
Right.
parts of the hemisphere of the
So-
brain.
So this one specifically,
Uh-huh.
like the purple color,
Yeah.
goes more right brain.
Gotcha.
Whereas, did you see this flashing
Yes.
light in your left eye?
Uh-huh.
It's going to different parts of the right brain.
Okay, and then again to bring the brain into balance.
Into balance.
Into
If we
balance,
find that
gotcha.
one's mature and one side's immature,
Right.
then we want to stimulate this side.
Gotcha.
Because we don't want to grow this side anymore and make it even further unbalanced or uneven.
Right.
So we want to grow the immaturities.
Uh-huh.
They have probably great skills in this certain area, but we want to grow the immaturities.
Right. Awesome. Okay, these are cool. So this is the stuff that if your child did visit here and did do this program, this is the kind of therapy that you would be looking at getting. Not, like I was mentioning, it's not teaching your kids to read or write. It's literally trying to get your brain
Balance.
to become balanced. Like it's called brain balance.
I mean, that's what we want. We want age appropriate,
Hence the name.
behavioral appropriate, grade appropriate skills.
Right, exactly. Okay, cool. What else do you have to share with us, Zach? Anything else, or is this mostly?
This is pretty much it.
This mostly it?
They spend the first half of their session in here, and the second half of their session in our cognitive room, where they're doing visual skills and the cognitive academics. Like we talked about earlier, we're not tutoring, we're not teaching, we're not doing their homework for them. It's actually using academics to grow brain.
Gotcha. Okay. So we did a little bit in the beginning with your kids and the pictures and stuff and with the things that they saw. But I mean, you've been doing this now for 4 years.
Right.
I mean, and overall, like, what are the great stories that you have, seen?
There's, I mean, every day you hear the stories of he actually came home from school without getting in trouble, without the teacher having to send a note home, without going to the principal's office. He actually sat through the day, and they had so much homework coming home that it was 3-4 hours at home, doing homework even after a school day. Well, that's terrible.
Right.
That's like punishment.
Yeah.
Well, now they've got 45 minutes because he's able to do it all in class.
That's awesome.
The social side.
I bet you that's probably
That's
one of the
huge.
big things, especially for parents.
We got invited to our first birthday party, or our first social deal.
Play dates.
They actually approached a new friend and made a new friend.
Mm-hmm. They went to talk to them, and
Right.
they engaged and stuff, and knew the right things to say.
Right.
Yeah.
It had that true connection.
Yeah.
The language side of now we're speaking in sentences, and now we're actually making the connection. We had a mom that had told us that the boy was, I believe, 7, and for the first time in 7 years, he told her that he loved her. And
Yes.
actually was able to produce that and make that connection and say it verbally.
I remember that. I remember Dylan not being able to. He had really no empathy.
Right.
So like if I was sad, he'd just be like, well, whatever, and then just sort of take off, and so, but after a lot of what he did here, then all of a sudden, if I was sad, he could tell.
Yeah.
He could tell that I was sad, whereas before he couldn't. He had no
He had no
clue.
understanding.
It was like Sheldon. Okay, Sheldon has no idea
Yeah.
what's going
No
on.
processing
No
of
being
it,
able to
right.
process that stuff. And so then all of a sudden he was able to read your face and be like, oh, she's sad.
Yeah.
And then he would want to come up to me and hug me and stuff like that. So that's
empathy and understanding.
empathy, understanding, being able to read body language.
Right.
He knew started to understand when I was being sarcastic with him. He had trouble understanding all of that stuff. Sarcasm,
A lot
no
of our
clue.
kids don't understand or process sarcasm.
No, none whatsoever.
Right.
So that was a really big deal for me too. So. Okay, guys. Well, I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to put a link. Well, actually, I think they're already tagged in the post. Brain Balance Centers is. I'll put a little bit more information in the comments for you guys. If you have more questions, write them in the comments section or call you guys directly.
Cool. Yeah.
And you can get a tour, and they can maybe answer any specifics that you might have. Do me a favor and share this, because a lot of people really do need to know what is out there. This is one great avenue for your kids. There's a lot of them, but this is a really good one to know about. And so share it with someone that you know that is struggling with this, who maybe has kids who are dealing with some of these issues. And because we got to do something, guys. Our kids.
Well, there's not going to be ever enough people to help with the epidemic growth of what we're seeing.
I mean, it's pretty much they're predicting in the next 15 years that pretty much 80% of our boys will be in the spectrum. So in the autistic spectrum, and that's horrifying.
Right.
That's absolutely horrifying to think. 15 years isn't that long. So these centers and places like this are going to be really needed, and people are going to have to understand that when you have a learning disability like that, or you're having a struggle like that, that not to throw up your hands and to think that there's no answers and there's nothing you can do, because that's crap. There's a lot of things that you can do. You just have to get off your butt and do it. I'm a little blunt. I'm sorry.
That's right. It's not easy though.
It's not easy.
It's work.
It is.
You know, if you want to make true changes, it's work.
It is.
There's
work.
no magic pill.
No, but it's so worth it, Zach.
Yeah.
It's so worth it. So, all right, share it, like it, do what you can, and we'll talk to you guys later. I appreciate it. Thanks again,
Thanks, guys.
Zach. Big hug. Oh, all right. Bye.